I think of music, particularly of singing, as a liberal arts degree. A great part of studying singing is reflection. It's about yourself. You got 1, 2, 3 mirrors in this room, and every voice studio will have mirrors. And I think that you stand in front of that mirror and you look at yourself while you're singing. You're looking at what you're doing technically, but you're also looking at yourself, and in my case, you're saying, John, look at you. Are you serious? And I think that's a good dialogue to have with yourself. And I believe that this work, this discipline with oneself through singing, because the instrument is you, it is unique in that way. If you approach it honestly and seriously, I believe it makes you a better person. Point of difference in the way I run my studio is that I run it largely around scheduling of a studio class. And I schedule students' repertoire at even intervals throughout the year. I'm basically dividing the performance time equally. So I'm giving them as much of an opportunity as possible to learn. I worked in an ensemble theater in Germany. So you're an employee of the government. You get a salary and you work a lot. So over 13 years in Germany, I sang around 1,000 performances of about 80 different opera roles. So I was constantly learning, constantly performing, constantly rehearsing, and I came to get an idea of what it is that the profession wants. And when there's so many good people, you can't survive if you aren't honestly trying your best. Coming back to this idea of being serious about your work, I start with that idea with accuracy. I believe that in a sense there's no work of art, there's no work of music, there's only the performance of music, and every performance is the work, and it's a new work. And I believe that performance is personal, but I believe that it can only really be personal and honest if you first throw yourself away and devote yourself into really, really engaging at the highest level with the work.